Hello everyone, I'm Dina Maini, ARSIAL Manager for AGRES project. I'm glad to be here with you for this third international online event of AGRES. We are about to present reports on the self-assessment that the AGRES consortium partners have made on the state of the art of renewable energy in their respective regions. But before starting, let's watch together this video, the welcome video. There's something. Just a minute.
C'è qualcosa di nuovo oggi nel sole, anzi, d'antico. With these words, renowned Italian poet Giovanni Pascoli opens one of his poems. Perfectly fitting words for such a wonderful day in Rome. New is the way in which this year's AGRES Symposium is taking place. Virtually, and we all know why. Old is the pleasure of having you all take part in this, sharing with you thoughts and ideas on a crucial topic, such as renewable energy sources in agriculture. And so, welcome.
Benvenute e benvenuti.
Welcome everybody.
Welcome.
Welcome to Rome.
Here are our offices.
Benvenuti in ARSIAL.
Welcome.
And here's Mario Ciarla, our President, ready to welcome you. Good morning, Mr. President.
Buongiorno a tutti. Nel dare a tutti voi il benvenuto nella sede di ARSIAL, voglio prima di tutto ringraziare i partner del progetto AgroRes, la capofila Genex, Extremadura Energy Agency, Institute of Technology Sligo, Northern and Western Regional Ensemble, Devon County Council, Lubelski Fellowship, Bucharest Ilfov Regional Development Agency, Regional Council of North Karelia. Voglio inoltre ringraziare la dottoressa Dina Maini che per ARSIAL sta seguendo il progetto AgroRes. È un progetto a cui teniamo molto perché lo sviluppo e l'implementazione dell'utilizzo delle energie rinnovabili nell'agricoltura e nei territori rurali è un asse portante della nostra politica. E questo progetto, che permette lo scambio delle best practice che vengono portate avanti dalle istituzioni che prima ho menzionato, è un qualcosa di fondamentale per promuovere la conoscenza verso una sostenibilità ambientale e verso un utilizzo maggiore delle energie rinnovabili. Quindi andiamo avanti insieme e buon lavoro a tutti.
Okay. I would like to introduce you to Sabina from Ecosystemic Foundation, who will be helping me in the coordination of this third event, international online event of AGRES. So, please, Sabina.
Hello everyone, welcome. As Dina mentioned, I'll be supporting in the facilitation of the event, and I will be passing the microphone to whoever is taking this speaking in turns. And unfortunately, we cannot keep the microphones open for everyone because we have many participants, we have many interventions, but you can take part actively in the meeting anyway by writing your comments and eventually your questions in the chat. And then we will collect them and we will propose them to the speakers as we go through the event. So before we start, I'll just remind every speaker that you have maximum 10 minutes for the presentation, so please mind the time, and we can start. So I'll pass immediately the word to our first speaker, who is Mr. González Mora from Agenex in Spain. Good morning.
Javier?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello, could you listen to me?
Hello.
Yes, okay, excellent, fine, okay.
Okay, so I'm going to start with my presentation. Just a second. So, thank you so much. As my colleagues say, I'm Javier. I'm a technician from Renewable Energy Agency. And now I'm going to make a quick presentation about the analysis of our region focuses in the agricultural area. The agenda of this presentation will be divided in 3 sections: the regional context, the possibility that incurs the renewable energy, and finally, the conclusion with a SWOT analysis. Firstly, you should know that Extremadura is a southwest region from Spain, with surface of around 42,000 square kilometers. Concerning the population, Extremadura, with a 1 million population, is a region with a low population density, only 25.6 per square kilometer, and that is the reason why there are huge extension of countryside. At the same time, Extremadura is divided into 2 provinces, Cáceres and Badajoz, and its capital is Mérida, which is located in the province of Badajoz. As I have commented before, Extremadura has a huge extension of countryside, and for this reason, the agricultural sector is one of the most important in the region. Extremadura is the leader in tomato production in Spain, with around 2,000 million kilograms, 68% of the total from Spain. They are the first production of Iberian pork. In the region, there are more than 150,000 breeding mothers. And another example of this is that we have the most professional beekeeping in Europe. They produce around 70% of Spanish pollen. According to its extension, Extremadura is the first community in Spain in wood areas, the 4th in forest areas, and the biggest in the middle with 1,000 of cork oak, which turned into the production of 38% of Spanish pork. Water resource is also abundant in Extremadura. The region has more than 14,000 cubic hectometers of demanded water. It has 41 dams, 8 in the Guadiana River, 33 in the Tajo River. In Extremadura, there are about 150 activity mining operations and account for one of the key mineral deposits for the ecological transition, lithium. The lithium deposit in the city of Cáceres is considered the second in Europe by volume, around 1.6 million tons, with an exploitation potential for 30 years. In related to the solar resource, Extremadura received between 4.0 and 5.1 kilowatt hour square meter day of average global irradiance throughout the year. Having this amount of solar resource places Extremadura as the second Spanish region in installed thermosolar power and the third in the photovoltaic power. On the other hand, Extremadura only has 17% of the usable territory for the exploitation of wind resource. The Spanish average is around 23%, so this resource is not so present in Extremadura. Regarding the industrial context, the agricultural sector is the second in importance behind the service sectors, with an average of 46 workers in this sector, with the local average in all sectors being 7.7. As a consequence of this, around the 96% of the company from Extremadura are small and micro enterprise with 25 or less workers. In the regional economy, the regional gross domestic product maintained an upward trend during the last 2 decades, as can see in this graph. The agricultural activity and agribusiness have an important weight in the economy of Extremadura compared to the country. The region showed the highest level of the specialization in the field of this activity. The agricultural sector contributes 9% in the Extremadura gross value added and 10% of employment. Looking at the following images, it can be said that the location coincides with a certain axis. One from Badajoz to Villanueva de la Serena, west to east, which account the most of the food industry. Other from Mérida to Jerez de los Caballeros, in the middle of Extremadura to the south. And finally, in the north, the northern irrigation corridor between Navalmoral and Coria. The main center of agricultural activity are found in the municipalities of Banco de Guadiana, and as well in the area close to Badajoz. In the energy context, it can be seen that Extremadura is an energy exporting community. In 2019, Extremadura produced 4 times more energy than the region demanded. The total installed power in Extremadura amounts to about 6,500 megawatts, around 98% on the installed power correspond to hydronuclear, photovoltaic, solar, and thermosolar. The rest is divided into between wind, renewable, thermal, electrical biogas and biomass, and cogeneration. Despite this, in Extremadura energy mix, 77% of this energy produced in 2019 was due to the nuclear technology. It should be borne in mind that Extremadura exists the Almaraz nuclear power plant, the most powerful in Spain, and renewable generation was the second position with 22% electricity production. Extremadura homes are the most important electricity consumer sector in the region, being almost 3 times higher than the next one. They are followed by commerce and services, the administration and other public services, the food, beverage, and tobacco industry, and private sector. Among these 7 fields, they account for around 84% of the electricity consumed in Extremadura. In related to public subsidies, Extremadura policy for the promotion of renewable energy in the agricultural sector has materialized in 2 programs that seek their promotion. Decree 115/2015 and the Decree 110/2018. Both grants were framed within the measure to promote renewable energy in favor of the sustainable development model and reduce greenhouse emissions. The amount of the grants was co-financed at 80% by the operation program of the European Regional Development Fund within the thematic objective for promoting the practices of low carbon economies in all sectors. The subsidies were divided into 3 lines according to the legal personality. Line 1 and line 2 were financed by a specific objective 4.3.2, and line 3 was financed under the specific objective 4.2.2. And finally, the spending plan provided for each call and divided by line of grant will be as shown in this graph. Thanks to these grants, project was decided for a total of 14.1 megawatts installed for biomass, more than 400 square meters of solar thermal, 1.8 megawatts of photovoltaic, and 1.2 megawatts of aerothermal energy. Unfortunately, the cost line for biogas did not get any project. After this extensive analysis of our region, some results have been obtained that can be complied in the following SWOT analysis. Strengths. Agro-industrial processes have a high energy demanded that can be covered by renewable energy. Renewable energy have developed a lot in the recent years and are already an alternative system for conventional energies. And thanks to the demands of the European Commission regarding to the reduction of greenhouse gases, grant will continue with other cars. And thanks to this, new jobs will continue to be created. The main weaknesses are the difficulty to access to credit for a renewable energy project due to the uncertain efficiency in the agricultural sector, mixed with the lack of information, the complicated administrative procedures, and the incompatibility for a total disconnection from the grid. But there are great opportunities as the development of a new infrastructure and new technologies thanks to a public grant or, for example, a new form of financing. The development of more efficient equipment creates a lower demand for energy, favoring the use of renewable energy and helping to meet the objective for the European Union. And finally, the threat. The regulation and the possibility world crisis are one of the biggest threats. And improving the technology is also necessary to lower the cost of the installation, and at the same time, great training for the qualified labor. That's all. Many in Extremadura a bit more. Thanks again.
Thank you, Javi. Can I ask you a question directly?
Yeah, of course. Tell me.
Thank you, first of all, for your very, very interesting presentation. You gave quite a bit of importance to credit and access to credit, and also you mentioned innovative financial systems. Can you tell us a bit more about this? Can you give us some examples?
Yeah, of course. Well, for example, could be like a power purchase agreement or PPA. In this way, renewable energy plant projects reduce the risks associated with the sale of their production. Another example could be the creation of energy communities, or another could be the green bonds, which are a specific access to financing for environmentally sustainable projects that promote the energy transition toward an economy that respects the environment. Another example could be the joint venture. It refers to the union of companies that jointly incur the provide fund to finance. a certain business, in this case related to the renewable energy. I think this is a good example.
Thank you very much.
You're
Thank you
welcome.
very much. Very
welcome.
clear. So I remind everyone that you can ask your questions and write your comments in the chat, and then we will collect them. So we can pass on to the next speaker. I will ask Mr. Glab from Lubelski Voivodeship in Poland if you can join us, and Adam.
Good morning, everybody.
Yeah. Okay. I pass the mic to you. Can you open your webcam? Yes, now we can see you. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Hope it will be working during all presentation, because I have some problems with internet connections.
C'ha problemi. Ce l'hai tu la presentazione?
Yeah, we will project your presentation. Okay. Now we can see it. We can see it as it is, but if you can enlarge it, you can go. Yeah, thank you very much. That's perfect.
Yeah. So let's see. It's a short introduction for this presentation. Lubelski Voivodeship is one of 16 regions in Poland. So it's over 2,500 hectares surface. Population, it's the third place in Poland, so quite big region. The population is over 2 million people. We have some economic informations. The gross domestic product in Lubelskie is very low. We are the poorest region in Poland. The average household income per capita is over 450 euros, and it's also quite low in Poland. There is a chart which shows area of Lubelskie Voivodeship. So over 70% is agricultural and rural land. 23.7 is forest. Very low urbanized land. It's nearly 4%. So we are typical agriculture region. There is over 141,000 hectares of agricultural area, and it's almost all in good agricultural condition. 172,000 farms. The average farm size is 8 hectares. These are not much specialized farms, so it's one of the problems of our region to make some changes in the sector. 300,000 people are employed in this agricultural sector. We have some ecological regions, so some of farms change to agrotourism. So we've got over 100 agrotourism farms. And in traditional structure of cross, you can see mainly are cereals, but we are main of producers of fruits in Poland. So we've got similar area of cereals and fruits. In structure of animal production, mainly it's animals for slaughter and milk production. Let's start about electricity production. Got not enough measures to show the other energy, heat or cooling, so we have only for electricity production. As I said, we are agricultural and less developed, one of the less developed region in Poland. So electricity production and consumptions are very, very low. But it's increasing in renewable energy because we've got very good sun conditions in Poland. It's the best place for PV. So every year we have some new installations. So we've got 23% when average in Poland is only 15. We've got the chart show energy consumptions in our region. So mainly is for industrial and energy and transport. This is a chart showing comparison compared to Poland. And this chart shows increasing of electricity production from renewable sources. We can see that is the biggest growth is starts in 2014, and it's because of starting the ROP, our ROP investing. Sorry for my English.
It's okay, don't worry, it's fine, very clear. No problem.
So here we've got the chart shows capacity of installations. So the biggest is the wind energy, then is photovoltaic, then biogas, biomass, and very small water energy. We've got here in a number of installations. We've got over 159 installations, and installed power is over 200 gigawatts. And this chart shows comparison of the developed during the last three years. We can see the biggest growth is in the photovoltaic, As I said, we've got the best conditions for this. The other technologies are in the same level because the biogas plants and using the biomass, it's very expensive, and there is no support for this production. So it's in the same level. The same about wind energy. The rules are changed. Now there is more difficult to find a place when the rules allow to build energy wind plants. Our national documents, Polish energy policy, the strategy, and the National Energy Efficiency Action Plan, all these documents make the rules about energy targets, energy develop directions, and they are according to European strategies also. We have some regional documents. These are also made for state for rules of develop and the directions of renewable energy in our region. The last one is the program of the development of renewable energy sources. It's from 2014, and it was made for update and analyze the potential and usage in renewable energy in the region. And now it will be updated after the 2014 to 2020 period. So we can see the changes in our renewable energy sector. We have some SWOT analysis. Our strengths, as I said, the European Union rules are in this direction to reduce the share of energy from fossils, and we have to move to reduce CO2 emissions. The development of RES will increase the country energy security for diversification and decentralization of energy sources, especially in our region, that we haven't got big energy plants in our region. And we can use energy sources as for agriculture is mainly about biomass. The weaknesses for these changes are frequent changes in regulations, as I said, about, for example, for wind energy. The other problem is problem to connect new energy installations to local electricity, because these are very old constructions, so they need to be updated to get new sources. Still, we have low public awareness of RES, and the last one is as I said, the problem to connect new producers to the grid, to the infrastructure. Opportunities for our region from RES develop. We can develop our local market for sources or companies for production energy, production of biomass. So it's very important for agricultural sector, for farmers. Improvement of energy security. So we'll be less dependent of big electricity. And social awareness of importance of RES and energy efficiency. It's slowly increasing, so it's good for acceptance of new energy installation. There is a possibilities to change production in agriculture, when some regions cannot produce in agriculture anymore because depend of economy. They can use the field to produce, to build, for example, photovoltaic plant. And it will increase the employment for rural areas. And it will be based to develop of RES communities, for example, clusters, local producers of energy. Threats for this develop are lack of social acceptance for new technologies, especially for biogas plants, and still activities of big energy lobby, because it's very complicated for them to compare and to connect renewable energy sources with traditional infrastructure and electricity plants. And the last threat is large fluctuations in price of substrates. For example, the prices and about biomass, like maize for biogas plants, through the droughts or different problems. Initial conclusions that our region.
I have to ask you to keep them very short, Adam, because we are running out of time. So yes, we can keep them short. Thank you. This
is the last one. We have good conditions for renewable energy. There is still a potential for development of photovoltaics and biogas. We still are increasing in installed RES capacity. And the final conclusions will be drawn and talk with our local stakeholders of the AgRES project. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Adam. Sorry for interrupting you at the end, but I think you went through very clearly throughout all the opportunities and also the difficulties that Lubelski region is encountering in developing renewable energies production. I found it very interesting that among the threats and the obstacles that you're encountering, there's also social acceptance of renewable energies. So the question I have for you is whether you think that agricultural subsidies could actually help overcoming this problem with the social acceptance, and if you have already applied them in your region, and what's your opinion about it? Because I think the problem of social acceptance is common also to other regions in Europe, so it would be interesting to listen to your opinion on this.
Yes, of course, I'm sure, because as I said, our region is not very rich, so all help will be good. The example is our national program, Mój Prąd, my energy, and it shows that the simple program for all it was for all citizens. It was 5,000 per one installation, 5,000 zloty. And there was 1 billion of zloty, so there were over 220,000 new photovoltaic installations. And thanks to financial leverage, the value of all installations is about 5 billion zloty. It's over 1.1 billion euros. So it shows that good program could increase investigation in installation in areas in Poland.
Okay, thank you very much, Adam.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, I would like to introduce you to one of Italy's most important agricultural and livestock realities, Maccarese, which is one of our selected best practice. As soon as we knew that this meeting would be at distance, we went back to Maccarese with some young filmmakers to try to reproduce for you a real visit. Let's watch this video together.
Salve, sono Amedeo Fadda dell'ARSIAL e oggi siamo a Fiumicino nell'azienda Maccarese SPA e ci troviamo con l'amministratore delegato Claudio Destro.
Io sono Claudio Destro, amministratore delegato della Maccarese SPA, è un'azienda che deriva dalla bonifica effettuata alla fine del 1800. L'azienda prima apparteneva ai principi rospigliosi, tant'è che abbiamo anche un castello dove aveva la residenza, per cui un'azienda che ha una storia immensa e che noi abbiamo voluto raccogliere in questo archivio che si trova all'interno del castello, dove sono contenuti i documenti di 100 anni di questa azienda e rappresenta un po' la storia dell'agricoltura italiana, perché tutto ciò che si faceva qui poi veniva replicato a livello nazionale. Tanto è vero che nel 1961 in questa azienda è stato siglato il primo accordo sindacale che ha sancito la parità di salario uomo-donna. L'azienda è sempre stata pubblica. Nel 99, tramite una gara pubblica, è stata assegnata al gruppo Benetton, che ne ha avviato il rilancio e la ristrutturazione.
Ci può dare qualche numero dell'azienda?
L'azienda consta di 3.200 ettari, che ne fa una delle più grandi aziende agricole più estese a livello nazionale. In questa azienda sono presenti tutti i tipi di terreni, e facciamo svariate colture, principalmente il mais e colture foraggiere che vanno dal triticale all'orzo, grano duro. Da 2 anni siamo partiti con un impianto delle mandorle, abbiamo tanti terreni che sono in compartecipazione con dei coltivatori locali. All'interno dell'azienda c'è anche il più grosso allevamento di vacche da latte, sempre a livello nazionale. Produciamo 600 quintali di latte al giorno che sono destinati al mercato romano, poi 500 bovini all'ingrasso che sono nati in azienda e destinati all'ingrasso, alla macellazione e alla vendita. Nel 2010, e anche per andare incontro a quello che è la nostra attenzione all'ambiente, perché all'interno dell'azienda sono presenti anche 500 ettari di orsi che noi abbiamo dato in gestione al WWF.
Nell'ambito del progetto Agrores siete tra le 2 migliori pratiche individuate nel Lazio, e ciò grazie a 2 importanti impianti di biogas. Potete parlarcene?
Questi 2 impianti sono nati uno nel 2010 e uno nel 2012 perché nell'ambito, nell'ottica dell'economia circolare abbiamo voluto chiudere il cerchio. Noi siamo un esempio di sostenibilità ambientale, di economia circolare perché produciamo l'alimentazione per gli animali, poi con gli effluenti zootecnici derivati dalla stalla andiamo ad alimentare i 2 impianti di biogas, produciamo energia elettrica e quello che esce dagli impianti di biogas, che si chiama digestato, va distribuito ai terreni, ritorna in circolo sotto forma di ammendante.
Buongiorno, sono Carlo Tomasetto, responsabile degli impianti a biogas dell'azienda maccarese. Il biogas non è altro che una miscela di gas dove il 50% è costituito da metano. Questo metano viene utilizzato da un cogeneratore, attraverso viene prodotta l'energia elettrica. Questa energia viene trasformata e immessa nella rete nazionale. Il biogas è prodotto dalla fermentazione in assenza di ossigeno delle deiezioni delle bovine con aggiunta di biomasse dedicate. I 2 impianti sono alimentati totalmente da materie prime prodotte in azienda. Nel corso di quest'anno l'azienda ha in progetto di installare sui tetti delle bovine da latte un impianto fotovoltaico per il totale autoconsumo dell'energia prodotta.
Okay, I hope you could get a sense with what it would have been to be in Rome today. It's also a beautiful day as it was in the video, so we can keep the same, we can stay on the same wavelength. Unfortunately, Carlo Tomasetto was supposed to take part in this meeting, cannot attend. He had an unexpected problem. So we moved directly from Rome to the United Kingdom. So I'll ask Alistair Mumford from Devon County Council in the United Kingdom if you're there and you can join us.
Screen.
Yeah, we hear you really low.
Oh, okay. Hang on a second.
Yeah, now it's better. Thank you.
Okay.
Do you know to share your presentation? I think we tried yesterday. Okay.
Okay, so thanks so much for having the opportunity to do this presentation. My name's Alistair Mumford from Devon County Council. So this is obviously on the regional self-assessment. Sorry. Yeah. An overview of the regional agricultural sector. So the table there shows production by agricultural sector for the wider southwest region. We couldn't get any data down to the Devon level, but it's pretty comparable. So the southwest agricultural production 2019 was estimated to be worth £3.6 million, 30% of which came from dairy production. So dairy production is the big farming area for Devon southwest. Support and secondary activities relating to farming are not formally recorded. However, diversified activities were of comparatively low value, contributing 6% to overall production. And then in the bottom right, the chart shows there how these are distributed by size, showing that the Devon area, is characterised by smaller farms in relation to sort of the UK as a whole. So in terms of livestock and land, then, so there was just over 7 million farmed animals were recorded in the county in 2016. The figure there provides a breakdown of the total number of animals converted to livestock units. Dairy dominates, making up 62% of total livestock units, with sheep farming being the second largest category at 22%. The other figure there, or the pie chart, shows agricultural land use. The majority of land is used for grazing, 77% in Devon, due to the presence of Dartmoor and Exmoor national parks. So there's two national parks, one in the sort of southwest and one in the northeast of the area. There is a strong history of open moorland grazing, with local farmers given rights to graze livestock. 16% of Devon's agricultural land is used for arable farming, which equates to around 81,000 hectares. Only 17.4 square kilometres is used for vegetable crops. Tourism is a large sector within Devon, bringing in an estimated 2.4 billion, so that's 2.65 billion euros in 2016. And many farms have diversified to capitalise on this and will be desperately wanting a normal summer soon. A review of tourism accommodation providers shows numerous high quality properties available to let within Devon, sort of self-catering cottages, that kind of thing. There's also B&B accommodation and, of course, many campsites. Many farms also provide food directly to consumers through farm shops or also farmers markets. Most towns of reasonable size will have a farmers market and some smaller villages. So in terms of the regional energy characteristics, DCC's electrical production has to be inferred from the combination of renewable energy generation data and the output from non-renewable energy sources. So within Devon, there is one non-renewable power plant, 885 megawatt combined cycle gas turbine power station at Langage. Langage is a farm. It's I think they do fruit and a range of other things, and they do also have anaerobic digestion down there as well. But so it's quite a substantial bit of diversification there by the landowner. But renewable energy generates 1,507 gigawatt hours, and the Langage plant is calculated to generate 7,080 gigawatt hours annually. Therefore, we think the total Devon electricity production is around 8,587 gigawatt hours. So in terms of the history of the region in terms of renewable energy, this graph shows the total capacity in terms of solar thermal, PV, etc., which you can see the different technologies on the right-hand side there. And you'll see that there's obviously been substantial change over the last few years, and then a clear flattening out there. So the main change really in 2011 and 2012 and 2013 is down to government incentives. So we've had things like the feed-in tariff for electricity, renewable electricity, the renewable heat incentive for renewable heat, also the renewable obligation, which is again for electricity. We've also had contracts for difference for electricity again, And there has been very specific initiatives for the agricultural sector, such as resource efficiency for farmers. And then in more recent times, we've seen the smart export guarantee. But that real increase there is through the feed-in tariff, the renewable heat incentive, and the renewables obligation, which provided long-term government-backed financial incentives for installations. So it was very much seen as the golden period, really, for renewable energy in Devon and in the country. So in terms of the breaking that down into the agricultural sector, so large-scale renewable installations in the Devon agricultural sector are shown in this table here. So only 41 farms have renewable installations over 150 kilowatts in Devon. Data for small-scale renewable installations is not publicly available, so there are substantial gaps in the data set, and we are looking to put in a what the UK government calls a freedom of information request to try and see if we can get more data on small-scale renewable installations, because as mentioned, Devon predominantly has smaller farms, and so it's more likely that the renewable installations are going to be in that small scale. So this capacity figures could be quite out, and particularly around biomass, where biomass is generally going to be a small scale installation size. But from this, you can see that there's quite a large amount of solar PV and some anaerobic digestion, and that reflects the solar irradiance levels. So although not as good as Spain, as Javier was putting forward, they are very good in Devon, and so Devon and Cornwall have the best irradiance levels of anywhere in the UK. So we have seen sizable installations there. And in terms of the AD, well, there's quite a lot of fuel produced in this area, whether it be maize or other things like that. So that's what sort of brought that into play. So to do the SWOT analysis, so in terms of sort of strengths, there has been supportive policies in the past, there's been incentives, there's been subsidies, and that has delivered a substantial increase in renewables. Obviously, much more work to be done. In terms of the weaknesses, though, the policy has been pretty short term. There's not really been a very clear goal, an amount of capacity that's to be delivered or carbon that's to be saved. Also, we had substantial changes made to planning policy, which made it pretty much impossible to do onshore wind, which in the UK is the cheapest form of renewable energy. So that's really held back development. Getting planning approval is as I say, not possible really at the moment. The subsidies and the incentives, they've stopped, and they've been replaced with something which is far less useful for the sector, doesn't provide long-term guarantees of income, and so it's very difficult to get finance on the back of that. The renewable heat subsidies, the renewable heat incentive was good, but that's going to be ending. It's slowly being tailored out, and it's been plagued with problems all the way along, really. So it's held back some ways the renewable sector. And also in terms of a lack of policy on renewable heat as well. That's slowly starting to come through. The government seems to be saying that air source heat pumps or heat pumps are the primary renewable heat, but we've been waiting for that some time. And also the sector, Devon suffers from very, very expensive grid connections. So when you're having to connect to the grid, it can be very costly. In terms of the opportunities, there's still lots of land available for development. The dairy sector still producing lots of raw fuel for potentially for AD, and dairy farms have a high demand for energy, hot water, pumps, etc. Developments in contracting means there's new ways of having supply arrangements. So that's interesting people in how we can look to connect consumers and generators. Devon has a considerable community energy sector, which can deliver attractive finance options. So there's some potential there. And if we're going to do onshore wind, it looks like community engagement is going to be critical. So the community energy sector can really help with that. And also the rise of carbon sequestration in soil, so capturing carbon in soil. and the need for carbon offsetting for us to achieve net zero, there's a definite market opportunity for the agricultural sector, and that income could be used to fund more renewable. In terms of threats, the planning still needs to be reformed. We need to make it easier for onshore wind. The dairy sector is in decline, particularly with small farms. So that goes across all sectors really. And still, grid capacity is poor. So investment needs to be made into the grid so that we can get cheaper connections and smarter connections as well that will enable further growth in renewables. So in conclusion, there's a significant opportunity for investment increase of renewable energy across Devon. It's the agricultural sector. There is strong commitments to action on climate change from the local authorities, the public sector and the private sector. And we do have good geographic conditions to deliver investment in renewables. There are some national incentives and policies starting to come through, but I think this is going to be more of a bottom-up approach, really. Anaerobic digestion does seem cost effective for larger dairy farms and solar PV and etc. And we do have good locations for wind, notwithstanding the planning constraints. So obviously we're having to deal with COVID-19 and the impacts of Brexit, and we're expecting more policy to come through sometime this year that could incentivize renewables use in the agricultural sector, but we'll have to wait and see. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Alistair. Thank you for your very interesting presentation. I also understand that it's difficult to make forecasts in this time of evolution and changes, but we also understand that there might be some new opportunities maybe coming along for the development of renewables. I have a question for you as well. You mentioned several times in your presentation the importance of small-scale plants and the growing need for a peer-to-peer market, also in the UK. So I was wondering if there is already a planned time frame for the development of this peer-to-peer trading market in the region, and if you can tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, so we have a few different ways. They're called power purchase agreements, which I imagine there'll be variations on that phrase, or other countries might be used to it. So there are ways for consumers to sell, for generators to sell directly to consumers. The problem is to enable to finance a site, the generator needs long-term income. And so they're looking for 20 years, potentially 25 years. And for a lot of consumers, they're not going to be comfortable to enter into that length of contract to purchase. So I think, for organisations like Devon County Council, that's less of a problem. So we probably will see the public sector and large organisations use these power purchase agreements. But what we really want, of course, is more of the farms to be able to use it and smaller communities and so forth. So we need to see that agreement length coming down. And for that, we need subsidies or some kind of incentive, or for the cost of installation to substantially come down in the region. So there's definitely more policy work that needs to be done to enable greater use of peer-to-peer trading.
Do you see any space for that in the near future?
Well, I hope so.
Because you kind of went around my question.
I hope so. Obviously, we have less of an ability to set regional incentives. It all comes from the central government. We've got the climate change meeting obviously later this year, so hopefully we will. Unfortunately, I think that our current government very much feel like it needs to be market-led. So I don't know. They seem to be very interested in offshore wind. So I don't think we're actually going to see it. However, one of the other things that we're working on is to set up a tariff. So I don't know whether the word tariff translates, but something for consumers.
A fixed rate.
Yeah, so like you go to your energy supplier and they give you a price for your energy. So you can get a renewable tariff at the moment. But what we'd like to be able to do is have a tariff where you know that the renewable energy you get through that tariff comes from the locality. And because it comes from the locality, you could pay a little bit more. And if we can get that uplift, it will then enable us to pass that on to the generator, and that might, so we might be able to do it without a subsidy. But obviously the rationale for that is there is a market out there willing to pay the uplift, which we hope so.
That might be. It's an interesting, would be an interesting attempt anyway.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So we move to Finland. I'll ask Pasi Laminluolo to get ready. So we'll have a presentation now from the Regional Council of North Karelia in Finland. Are you there, Pasi?
Yes, good day everyone, I'm here. Can you see my presentation already?
We can see your presentation, but we cannot see you. Now we can see you. Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you.
The floor is yours.
Yeah, good day everyone, my name is Pasi Laminluoto. I'm a project manager here in the Regional Council of North Karelia. And I will start with the short lesson for geography. For those of you who have not yet visited in North Karelia, I wanted to show how we are located in the bigger picture. So we are obviously quite up north here. We are the most eastern region of Finland and most eastern region of continental Europe, actually. And there is approximately 164,000 inhabitants in the region, and very, very low density of people, approximately 9 inhabitants per square kilometer. So you can say we are quite remote and rural region. And we do have 300 kilometers common border with Russia, our eastern neighbor. And you can see also the regional map over there. It's a bit old. There should be one more municipality included, but you can get the idea from there. And Joensuu is basically the capital city of the region. But we will move on to our regional self-assessment. I have picked up some general notes or findings from our paper to this presentation, and we'll go them through briefly right now. So at the moment in our region, there's currently a 67% of energy consumption comes from the renewable sources, and target for the year 2040 is 100%. So you could say that we already have a decent level of renewable energy, and ambitions are even higher. But you have to notice that this is the whole region combined, all industries combined. And of course, we do have, like other Nordic regions, we do have special conditions in terms of climate. Like now, we do have around 60 or 70 centimeters of snow on the ground. Last 2 months have been temperatures had been -20 to -30 degrees. So wintertime is quite long, and it's usually quite cold. So there is a huge need for heating, and that's of course a special condition for us. We have also completed a recent study, which is separate from this regional self-assessment, and as a result for that, we do now have a quite good overview of the renewable energy in our agriculture sector, also the potential of that. And one finding was that in last decade, this renewable energy in agriculture sector has been promoted mostly by development projects, investment subsidies, different kind of guidance services. And although there has already lot have been done, there's still need to continue this work and even go further with these measures in order to reach those quite ambitious targets. In farm scale, most used renewable applications are wood and forest-based energy sources. There is a natural reason for that. We do have a long tradition or history for using a wood as a heat source. So it's quite natural that it's most popular source also today. But also quite positively, for example, these other renewable sources like solar power usage has increased lately significantly, mostly because of the technology. Technology has been there's advanced technology available and it's already quite affordable. So we have seen a quite good development also in that sector. We have found out that there is a massive potential for biogas and biomass-based renewable energy in our agriculture, although at the moment farm-scale biogas plants are still very uncommon. There are very few of them, so there is something that we need to look at when we plan for the future. CO2 emissions in agriculture, apart from livestock and field cultivation, are mainly related to fossil fuel heating and machinery. And of course, like I said, the winter time is tough in terms of heating, so there is something we need to look at also when we plan for the future. We have also come up with the SWOT analysis for this regional self-assessment. For the strengths, one could say that there has been a quite good level of promotion in terms of renewable energy already from the different authorities, and there have been funding programs towards to RE investments, and we have Finland has made the national level also changes to this tax regime to boost small-scale renewable energy sector. So those we have identified as strengths. But then for the weakness side, there is need for modification and clarification for legislation. For example, permit procedures for biogas plants are complicated, and there are some other small things. There is need for update also at national level for the legislation. Opportunities we have identified, like I said before, there is a big potential for biomass production. Also, there is potential for electricity and liquid biofuels in agricultural machinery. And North Karelia has a high level of knowledge and RDI of wood and forest industry in the region. And we certainly hope that it can help us to promote also these renewable energy sources. About the threats, sorry, obviously lack of funding and subsidy sources in investments. And although there is a quite good common commitment for the climate targets and renewable energy, there is still a chance that part of the people, for example, in the agriculture sector, do not accept these kind of things or modifications, and there needs to be promotion and also raising the awareness of renewable energy. And of course, there's always chance that lack of political will to develop this legislation, regulations and taxing related to renewable energy production and usage. But we certainly hope that there is, and it seems that there is quite good and common understanding of the subject also at the national level. Then finally, I wanted to show you as an example from our separate study I mentioned before. We have identified a couple of measures for diffusion of renewable energy in our agricultural sector. As you can see, there is 3 different categories. First one is abandoning fossil fuels in heating, and then you can see there are small dots. Small dots, I'm not going to go them through now, but you can see there's more measures, more concrete measures for that, and also key stakeholders for doing this, achieving this change are listed over there. And second category is farm scale biogas production. Like I said, there is a huge potential for that. Also some identified bottlenecks or obstacles. And the third one for us is replacing diesel fuel in agricultural machinery. And the similar set is listed right here. So I just want to show this as an example from our study, which we are going to use also as a base for our regional action plan when we start this work later this spring, perhaps. And we have also used it as a base for this regional self-assessment. So basically, thank you. That was my part of the story.
Thank you very much, Pasi. So the list of measures that now you highlighted are quite diverse and interesting. And but you also mentioned that in the region there is a lack of political commitment to develop further the renewable energies. So I was wondering how do you see the combination of these 2 aspects? So having some very interesting opportunities coming up, but lacking the political willingness to develop them. So I was wondering if you can see any changes in that respect in the future, and what do you think will be the impact of the new European policies towards the Green New Deal and so on?
Yeah, absolutely. I certainly hope so, that there will be a improvement for this sector. And as for the political acceptance of this climate targets and renewable energy, I think in our region we do have a quite good situation. But at the national level, there are some different kind of ideas how we should proceed, and we will see how will they reflect to our region. But it's clear that there is a need for update, for example, legislation and permit procedures, and of course investment funding for example biogas or other implications is a necessity. So basically that's what I think for this question.
Okay, thank you very much, Pasi.
Thank you.
So we are not so slowly moving towards the break, but before the break we would like to ask you a little poll. So there will be a couple of questions popping up on your screen. You have like a minute or so to answer, 2 minutes, to answer, and after that we can have a break of 15 minutes. So I'll leave you with the time to answer for the poll, and we can be back at 11:35. Se lo devo leggere non lo vedo. I'll just read out loud the questions to you. So the poll regards after the pandemic crisis, whether do you think that the use of renewable energy has A, increased, the drive for sustainable development has become irreversible, B, remained the same, the pandemic has not changed the scenario in this respect, and C, decreased. The economic crisis might cause a reduction in investments by farmers despite the funds provided. So just mark what you feel is the right answer and then enjoy your short break. We'll be back in 15 minutes.
Hello, here we are, ready to start again. And now I present to you our second best practice, Tularù, a multifunctional farm in the north part of Lazio. Let's watch the video.
Buongiorno, siamo nell'azienda agricola Tularù, un'azienda che abbiamo selezionato per le buone pratiche del progetto AgroRes, e adesso parleremo con Michele, il titolare, che ci illustrerà le attività aziendali. Allora Michele, tu hai un nome spagnolo, ci racconti la tua storia, come mai sei venuto nelle montagne interne della regione Lazio e hai sviluppato questa azienda agricola?
Allora, in realtà mia madre è italiana e mio padre è spagnolo. Sono nato in Spagna, ma la parte italiana è originaria proprio di qua. Questo è il casale che avevano i miei nonni. Qua io mi ricordo quando ero piccolo ed estate abitavo in Spagna e venivamo qua. C'era sempre un gran da fare d'estate con la finaggione, la raccolta dei campi, e quando era ora di pranzo mia nonna dal terrazzo ci chiamava così, faceva Tularù, che voleva dire venite a pranzo. Per me da piccolo io vedevo i grandi che si organizzavano, parlavano di come fare i lavori, noi piccoli giocavamo, erano momenti molto belli di condivisione, e Tularù era proprio un richiamo verso un momento bello di condivisione, che era quello che volevamo fare tornando a prendere in gestione questa azienda.
Vista la multifunzionalità di questa azienda, la filosofia del riciclo e del riuso di tutti i prodotti aziendali, è spontaneo chiedersi come siete passati alle energie alternative, come avete sviluppato queste energie rinnovabili nella vostra azienda.
È un'azienda a ciclo chiuso e multifunzionale, il che vuol dire che riutilizziamo tutti gli scarti o comunque cerchiamo di impostare un ciclo della sostanza organica in maniera che poi possa tornare utile a tutte le produzioni dell'azienda, che si basa sostanzialmente su produzione di carne bovina, produzione di grani antichi e produzione di ortaggi destinati alla cucina e alla trasformazione quindi in agriturismo. È un'azienda che si trova a 850 metri sul livello del mare, nel terreno collinare di Rieti, una zona sostanzialmente vocata al pascolo che abbiamo recuperato grazie alla collaborazione con la ONG DEAFAL. Abbiamo progettato il pascolamento razionale Voisin, quindi l'utilizzo della mandria per rigenerare il pascolo stesso e incrementare la produzione di pascolo, alimentandole quindi solo a pascolo e fieno, senza mangimi aggiunti, e chiudendo tutto il ciclo di produzione, quindi producendo e vendendo direttamente la carne. Il progetto aziendale si basa tutto su una logica di economia circolare, riutilizzo e valorizzazione della sostanza organica in tutto il suo percorso. Oltre a una forse più convenzionale cogenerazione tra stufa a gasificazione, quindi a fiamma inversa, a fiamma rovesciata, in combinazione con i pannelli solari termici che vanno a scaldare due accumulatori di acqua calda, abbiamo integrato anche la tecnologia del termocompost, che non è altro che un cumulo di cippato che attraverso una fermentazione aerobica produce una temperatura costante di 60 gradi che va appunto attraverso delle spirali di tubo dove passa acqua, va a scambiare l'acqua con appunto gli accumulatori. Utilizziamo il termocompost proprio perché abbiamo una ventina di ettari di bosco da gestire, abbiamo un frutteto e abbiamo quindi tutte le potature, la pulizia e tutto quel materiale legnoso viene recuperato, compostato insieme al biochar che produciamo e compostato e poi utilizzato nell'orto per l'orticoltura che ci produce appunto tutto il fabbisogno per la cucina praticamente. L'energia che tiriamo fuori quindi, cioè partiamo da un punto di partenza che è il nostro ciclo produttivo. Non puntiamo a produrre i megawatt, cioè non puntiamo a essere produttori di energia in prima battuta, ma quello che ci interessa fare è recuperare in tutti i modi possibili i nostri scarti e attivare così un'economia circolare.
Welcome back. Miguel Lecheves, are you with us? If you are online, I just wanted to thank you for the beautiful virtual visit that you allowed us to do on your farm. And I have a quick question for you. If you're not there, I'll just pass on to Stelian. That I see you're there. So I'll pass the word to Stelian Siliat from the Bucharest ILFO, the Regional Development Agency of Bucharest in Romania.
Hello.
Hello, Stelian.
Can you hear me?
Yes, very well.
Okay, just a second. So now you can see my presentation?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So my name is Stelian. Hello, everybody. I'm the AgroRes Bucharest project manager on the behalf of Bucharest ILFO Regional Development Agency. And I will present our region self-assessment. Bucharest ILFO is one of the 283 NUTS 2 regions of the European Union, being located in the southeastern part of Europe. The region is located in the southeastern part of Romania and is being formed by two entities, the Ilfov County and Bucharest Municipality. Ilfov County consists of 40 territorial administrative units, of which 8 cities, 32 communes, and 91 villages. Bucharest is divided in 6 districts, arranged radially around the central area of the city. The total area of the region is 1,823 square kilometers, most of which is represented by the territory of Ilfov County, about 87%. The Bucharest-Ilfov region is the most populated region of the country, in 2018 reaching a population of just over 2.5 million inhabitants, of which Bucharest registered over 83% of this value. If we refer to the structure by gender, the predominance of females is observed, registering a number of 1.35 million people, representing 53% of total population of the region. Regarding the division of the population by areas of residence, it is observed that approximately 91% of the population of the region lives in urban areas, respectively 2.3 million people. At the same time, between 2012 and 2018, Bucharest registered a reduction in the number of inhabitants by approximately 30,000 citizens, while Ilfov County has an annual growth rate of 24%. Regarding the economic situation of the area, we can conclude that the following. The Bucharest Ilfov GDP is 56.1 billion euros, being the highest value compared to other regions of the country, and thus being the most economically developed region of the country. In terms of GDP per capita, the value is in 2018 is 22,000 euros, with a growth rate of 40% compared to 2012 value. Compared to other regions of the European Union, our area is located above the capital of Bulgaria, Sofia, and close in value to capitals such as Budapest or Warsaw. The analysis of gross added value by economic sectors reveals the characteristic feature of a capital region, namely the majority contribution of services and trade over 76%, followed by the secondary sector, industry and construction, and the primary sector, agriculture, with only 0.43%. The average income per household is 1,060 euros, and the average value of income per person is around 420 euros. In order to calculate the values of the total incomes, were taken into account the following: the salaries and other incomes associated, social benefits, non-agricultural and agricultural activities, household asset sales, and other incomes represented by the equivalent value of the consumption of agri-food products from own resources. Nationally, the average number of employees in agriculture, forestry, and fishing has grown steadily, registering an increase of 80,000 people in 2017 compared to 2012. As a share of total employees nationwide, the Bucharest-Ilfov region occupies the last place with 4%. Compared to the main economic sectors at the level of Bucharest-Ilfov region, were registered in 2018 about 5,000 employees in the primary sector, of which 73% are male. The average number of employees in agriculture, forestry, and fishing has experienced an oscillating evolution within the region, characterized by a continuous increase from 2012 to 2015, then marked by a significant decrease in 2016. Moreover, in 2017, the average number of employees reached almost 5,000 citizens, representing an increase of 4% compared to 2012. Bucharest-Ilfov region is located entirely in the plain area at altitudes between 46 and 128 meters. The region is crossed by 4 important watercourses and shelters a chain of 16 anthropic lakes. The analyzed territory is located in the area of temperate continental climate, highlighted by average annual rainfall between 550 and 600 millimeters, average annual temperature of 10 to 12 degrees, and humidity values of approximately 74%. I would add that in Bucharest there are 2 of the above mentioned watercourses and 2 anthropic lakes. The total agricultural area of the region is over 104,000 hectares, most of which, about 99%, are in Ilfov County. a report of National Institute of Statistics highlights in our region the existence of over 21,000 agricultural holdings, of which 13% are intended exclusively for animal husbandry. Moreover, most of them are holdings without legal personality, with an average surface area of just over 3 hectares. Regarding the distribution of agricultural land, as can be seen in the graphic representation, the most important proportion is held by arable land, 96.3%, followed by pastures and meadows, and the land occupied by vineyards and orchards, which represent 1.5% of the total agricultural area. As main crops, in relation to the occupied area, cereals are highlighted, especially the areas cultivated with wheat, rye, corn, and barley. Sunflower and rapeseed have also a significant contribution, totaling over 22,000 hectares. And the area cultivated with vegetables, both in the field and in solariums or gardens, registered a decrease of 229 hectares during the analyzed interval. In 2018, the main vegetable crops, according to the quantity expressed in tons, were the white cabbage with approximately 24,000 tons, tomatoes with the same value, bell peppers and eggplants with 7,000 tons. Potato and onion crops records lower values, standing at about 2,000 tons each. Regarding the evolution of the spread of renewable energy, as you may know, the European Union is increasingly concerned about using the renewable energy sources as a part of European policies to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. In this context, a new regulatory framework was adopted in June 2018, which includes a new mandatory renewable energy target for the European Union countries of 32% by 2030. The target for Romania in 2020 was 24% and was exceeded in 2016 when Romania recorded 25% of energy from renewable sources in its final energy consumption. Regarding local policies and actions for the spread of renewable energy, I will briefly present the most important ones. Romania's energy strategy with its 3 strategic objectives, the National Integrated Action Plan in the field of energy and climate change 2021-2030. It is the main regulatory instrument on decarbonization, energy security and renewables. National Action Plan for Capitalization of Renewable Energy Sources, the Strategy for Capitalization on Renewable Energy Sources with its 3 strategic objectives, and the National Strategy on Climate Change in Romania, which provides clear guidance on appropriate climate action in the agricultural sector. In terms of our potential, studies conducted in Romania showed the potential in the field of green energy productions consists of 65% biomass, 17% wind energy, 12% solar energy, 4% micro hydropower, and 2% geothermal energy. Romania's most important potential remains the agricultural biomass, an important fixed carbon source for which till now are no organized collection practices in our region. The analysis of meteorological data shows that Romania's wind potential can provide an amount of energy of approximately 23,000 gigawatt hour per year. The geographical distribution of solar energy potential reveals that more than half of Romanian surface benefits from an annual energy flow between 1,000 kilowatt hour per square meter per year and 1,300 kilowatt hour per square meter. From what we have managed to identify so far, this would be a list of the main renewable energy producers in the region. It should be mentioned that they deliver the entire amount of energy in the network, not being specifically used in agriculture. And we can see that cumulated, they are producing over 33 megawatt electricity. It is important to be mentioned that this activity will continue and we will keep on searching information related to this subject. And of course, it will be completed by the end of this semester. That's all from my side.
Thank you very much, Stilian.
Thank you.
So I have a quick question for you as well. Concerning your targets, you showed us that there is a share of 24% of renewable energies in your overall energy consumption. So I was just wondering, you already partially answered to this question, but what are the sources that are contributing the most to the achievement of this target nowadays, and what are the development that you see in the future? So if there will be a change, or if you will see some increase in the use of one source or another?
Right now, from our analysis and from studies conducted in our country, electricity produced by hydropower plants was the most important source for reaching this target. About potential, as you could see in my presentation, it's a very large potential for biomass and also for photovoltaic energy. We'll see in the future how it will go.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So before we move on to Mel Gavin for with the Institute of Technology of Sligo, I'll try again to connect with Miguel Aceves from Tularu. If you're online, Miguel, can you just open your microphone and speak? Because he replied via chat, so maybe he has some problem with the microphone. Okay, if not, I'll ask kindly Mel Gavin from the Institute of Technology of Sligo in Northern and Western Regional Assembly of Ireland. If you can switch on your microphone and your webcam.
Yeah.
And yeah, thank you. And you can share your presentation.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, we can see it.
See this?
So the floor is yours.
This okay?
Yes, now I can hear you. Yeah, thank you.
And you can see the presentation okay?
We can see the presentation. I think we see your next slide as well.
Okay.
It doesn't matter, but just so that you know what we see. We see exactly what you are seeing. Okay. I don't know if you have some secret passwords in your next slide, otherwise it doesn't matter.
No, okay, I'll carry on. Thank you very much for accepting.
That's
okay.
fine.
So I work in the Institute of Technology in the northwest of Ireland, and we have our partners on the meeting here as well, the Northern and Western Regional Assembly. So we're just going to take a look at some aspects of our regional self-assessment, specifically the agricultural sector in the region, and some of the energy use, and then moving really onto the SWOT analysis for the potential for renewable energy uptake and production in agriculture. The first thing to note here is that our regions have changed slightly. So the operational program, which is for the Border, Midlands and West region that you see here, that region has changed, but it is being reviewed at the moment, and it will be renewed, but for a slightly different region. So the Midlands has been taken away from this region now, so we're just dealing with the Border and West, and the Border has reduced slightly. So the Northern Western region area that you see in blue there is the region that we're discussing at the moment, or that we'll be, I suppose, focusing on in our regional assessment. That region has about 36% of the overall territory of the state and 18% of the population. So it's quite a dispersed population. In terms of economic production, or the gross value added for the region is only approximately 10% of the state. And then within the region, agriculture only accounts for approximately 4% of that. So it's quite low. So looking at the agricultural sector itself, in the northwest that we see here, which is represented in the Border and West regions there on the left, you can see that we're generally dealing with smaller average farm sizes and obviously smaller economic standard outputs. So when this region included the Midlands region, which you see in the middle of the chart there, you can tell that the Midlands would have skewed the overall result for the BMW region. In the region, most of the farms and the land use are for beef and sheep farming. The term specialist here just means that it's the main activity on those farms. So yeah, it's mostly to do with beef grazing and sheep grazing. And then in relation to the type of economics for the different sectors, this is for the country as a whole. Ignoring the one on the very right at the moment, the one referred to as other, we can see that beef production and sheep production are generally low economic outputs, and that the areas around dairy and tillage tend to be more lucrative. Now, in the Northwest region, we have almost 2/3 of all sheep farming. And then for those higher value areas, you see that they're not in the Northwest region. Tillage and dairy farms are generally contained in the southern region. Now, for that other region, it's a data set that includes things like pigs, poultry, and some specialist horticulture. It does have a high economic output, but it only accounts for 1% of the overall farms. It is well represented in the Border region, which is a part of the Northwest, including 30% of all pigs and 70% of all poultry. So it's quite a high value sector, and it is the main sector in our region that has a high energy input, high energy consumption. So what it's represented really by a smaller number of specialist producers. In terms of the land quality then, which drives the type of farming that we have in our region, for the Border and West, which is the region we're talking about, we've quite a high percentage of commonage. Now, commonage is just a term that refers to land that is owned by multiple parties, and that generally means land that is not as useful to traditional farming. It's difficult to access, and essentially it's very rarely worth fighting over. So it's quite acceptable for it to be owned by multiple parties and used by multiple parties. So it's representative of the general quality of the land in our region. It does have potential as high nature value farming. So it has potential to promote or to support biodiversity. And again, to combine that with renewable energy, there is some potential there, but it may also be perceived as a conflict with biodiversity, in particular if you have wind technology in an area that's considered important as a habitat. In relation to the renewable energy in the agricultural sector itself, there aren't enough examples for there to be any meaningful data. So the most of the information we've gathered is in the case studies. There are a lot of case studies identified in our good practices, but not sufficient that they are collected as a statistical data. So that is expected to change over the coming years because of some of the emerging policies that I'm going to discuss in a moment. The agricultural sector in Ireland is our largest contributor to greenhouse gas emissions. So it is quite important, it's quite focused on in terms of policy. But the greenhouse gas emissions in the agricultural sector are not really related to energy use, they're related to other aspects. So the reasons we can see for the low uptake of renewable energy in the sector to date are to do with the small farms, their limited financial and technical capacity. So to consider, let's say, changing their investment models or moving some of their land to a different use is quite challenging for them. Again, in the region, because it's dominated by beef and sheep farming, there isn't really much potential for self-consumption of renewable energy, which is the most realistic way of utilizing renewable energy at the moment, because there isn't much potential for export. And that lends itself to my next point, that there's no market tariff at the moment for small or micro-scale renewable electricity generation. There was a scheme, a refit scheme, but it closed in 2015. Now, in terms of energy crops, there was some potential for farmers to produce energy crops essentially as a fuel for sale, but there was quite a lot of poor experience in that market, so it didn't really take off. We do have our version of the Renewable Heat Incentive. It's called the Support Scheme for Renewable Heat, or SSRH. It's still at an early stage. It was opened in 2019. Obviously, last year, because of the pandemic, it didn't get much chance to grow in any great numbers. But it will at least create some potential for farms to take up renewable heat themselves for their own consumption, particularly in the poultry sector. And there may be more potential for market growth in biomass and energy crops. We also have quite an aging farm holder profile. So the majority of our farmers, I think there's only about 5% that are under 35, and then the majority are over 55, the vast majority. The policy focus, as I'd mentioned, is on greenhouse gas reduction, which is correct, but it overshadows the potential for renewable energy and the opportunity that might have for the sector. So looking at the strengths, the main strength in Ireland and in the region is a very good wind energy resource. Our capacity factor there, onshore capacity factor, is 28%, which is a little bit higher than the EU average, and that's across the state. It's probably a little higher in the northwest because of the Atlantic coast. So there's quite a lot of potential there for wind energy. When it comes to solar resource, we're not known for our sunshine. In fact, Dina, when the Romans got to this part of Europe and they had a look across from Britain, they called Ireland Hibernia, which means land of winter, I believe, and they didn't bother coming over. Despite that, we do have a solar resource that's comparable to Denmark, and I often make that comparison because Denmark has almost 30 times the solar PV installed that Ireland has. So with a similar solar climate and the same technology available to us, the difference has to be in the economic policies. And then again, with regards to the Northwest, what we do have in particular is cheap land. So land that is probably of less value to farming and to other uses than the South. So it is there available as a land resource for renewable energy. The weaknesses then, mostly the first point is the smaller farms and that limited potential, that limited capacity. And in many cases, limited awareness that some others have referred to as well. That also is the aging farm holder profile is also a weakness in that it's more difficult for an older farmer to consider an investment that has a longer payback. Because, as I said before, the main farming types are not particularly energy intensive, there isn't much potential for self-consumption. The lack of an available market tariff is for export to the grid is another weakness, and that very limited market for energy crops. There are also some considerable infrastructural deficits in the region, and that's the proximity to the electricity grid and the natural gas grid. And you can see that in the maps here. Now, the map on the left is it's the transmission grid in Ireland, and while many installations at a farm level would probably connect to the distribution grid, the lower voltage grid. The lower voltage grid is quite similar in its concentration and where it's lacking. So the northwest isn't as well served as the rest of the country. And of course, that has to do with population density. Then we have on the right, we have the natural gas grid. And again, the northwest is the most peripheral region to that grid. So for the potential for perhaps biogas injection right now in the northwest, it's having a feedstock or a potential for biogas production. You don't have the same potential to inject into the national grid. On the map there's one green circle beside a town called Cush. That is the first biogas injection point on the national gas grid. There are opportunities, some of them to do with the gas grid, but the main ones for agriculture are the support scheme for renewable heat, because it has good potential, particularly for the poultry sector. Now, while we don't have a great deal of data yet for that in terms of actual installations up and running, most of the applications to date are in the border region, and a lot of those are in the poultry sector. So we do expect some good data to emerge from that. The Climate Action Plan, which was published in 2019, is our main policy document to answer the EU directives for energy efficiency and clean energy. And within that, there is a big increase in the target of electricity from renewable sources. Currently, we're producing about 32% of our electricity from renewable sources. That's to grow to 70% by 2030. And within that target, there's most of it is from solar PV, which will be generally onshore, I imagine, and onshore wind. So there's a lot of land that will be required for that, and there is potential for farm, rather than simply being land leases for that, to have some ownership and participation in that. The main mechanism for that at the moment is the Renewable Electricity Support Scheme, which has a category for community-owned projects. And again, there's good potential for farmers to participate in that. And there's a growing community movement, not just in the program I've mentioned there, the SEC program, but generally community interest and community motivation to be a bigger part of the energy infrastructure in Ireland. Gas Networks Ireland, who essentially operate the gas grid, they have a target for 20% renewable gas on the network by 2030. So again, there's potential for anaerobic digestion, both in terms of an installation point of view and perhaps feedstock as well. Now in the northwest, we're working on a satellite gas network, one that won't be connected to the main grid, but would be serviced by a virtual pipeline, essentially by trucking in compressed natural gas from the main grid to a local satellite network. And that would unlock the potential for biogas injection in this region as well. We're working on that at the moment. The other opportunities that are arising are in that microgeneration scale up to 50 kilowatts. There is a support scheme that is being developed at the moment as part of the Climate Action Plan. And we've already made a submission to the public consultation on that, in particular considering the barriers that were in there for agriculture. Within that, then, there's a review of the planning exemptions, and there are some policies for peer-to-peer trading, which we don't have at the moment. Some of those that Devin had spoken of there as well. We also believe there's a big potential for an energy agency, a lot like Aginex in Extremadura, and in other regions in Ireland, there are energy agencies that have largely been involved in some of the better case studies in the agricultural sector. So we're proposing to establish one in this region as well. The threats, as many have said, the administrative burden of the support schemes, the bureaucracy involved, and the regulatory barriers are a big threat to any of this uptake. The cost of grid connection, again, many have mentioned that as well. There is quite a bit of opposition at community level to some onshore wind energies, and that's because of poor practice and some bad history over the last decade. And there's a gap in the renewable electricity support scale. So there's a policy coming forward for 50 kilowatts. There's an existing mechanism in place for 500 kilowatts and upwards, but there's nothing in that space between. And that is where we are. So we're continuing to complete our regional self-assessment at the moment. And I've got a lot of good tips and points to expand on from some of the others today. So thank you for that. That's me.
Thank you very much, Mel. I'll connect to your last threat, to the last threat that you mentioned. So you said that there is no clear emerging policy for a 50 gigawatt to a 500 kilowatt renewable electricity export to grid. So I was just wondering if you can give us some more details about this gap, if you can explain it a bit better.
Yeah, it's essentially just an installation power capacity gap. So the microgeneration at the moment is up to 11 kilowatts, which is quite small when you consider from the potential of a farm building or a farm site.
Yeah.
That's going to increase to 50 kilowatts. So there will be some more potential there for farms to have solar PV or wind on site for self-consumption, but they'll have some payment for their export, their access to the grid, which will improve the business case. The other scheme, the Renewable Electricity Support Scheme, that has a payment mechanism for 500 kilowatts and upwards to connect to the grid. But there's nothing in between, and a lot of the potential for farm sites and farm buildings fits into that area in between, maybe 100 kilowatts, 200 kilowatts. And some of the good practices we've identified are in that scale. So at the moment, those good practices, while they're working and they're self-consuming, they're good practices because it's convenient. They spill to the grid and they get no payment for that. So it's a big. It could be a major improvement to the business case.
Okay, thank you very much, and congratulations for the overall development of renewable energies in Ireland. That seems to be quite advanced and interesting. So I'll move on to our last speaker for the morning, which is Matteo Zocchi from Regione Lazio, ARSIAL. Good morning, Matteo.
Do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah, very well. You can share your
Thanks, Sabina. Good morning to all. It is a pleasure to see you again. I'm going to upload the presentation. Voila.
Yeah, we can see it. Thank you.
It is okay? Okay. Okay. Well, where we are in the compilation of the format, we are proceeding with the compilation of the document, and we have reached the last part. We have found difficulties in collecting data because they are not updated or, in some case, totally absent. It is precisely this richness of such a document. It will represent a photograph that is as accurate as possible of the situation of renewable energies in Lazio, and will make it possible
Matteo, we lost your voice. We cannot hear you anymore. Matteo? Okay, we seem to have quite a few connection problems in Italy, so we can give a last, we can We can give a last try to Miguel. Miguel, can you try to speak?
Buongiorno, mi sentite? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Is that Miguel? Okay, so we interrupt with Matteo. Wait, okay. Matteo, are you back? Miguel is back. Who is speaking now? Miguel. Okay. So I can ask you the question I had in mind before. Thank you for the visit that you allowed us to do in your farm. It seems to be a very beautiful place, and we can see it's also a very beautiful day. And so we were just wondering if the closed loop system that you set up in Tularú can be replicated in a larger context. No, I think maybe you can close the video because your connection is very poor. Puoi chiudere il video forse, parlare solo? No.
Delay.
There's a delay in the... Okay. No. No. Miguel, I think you can write your reply to the question in the chat because your connection is very poor. No. So the audio is terrible.
You hear me?
If you can be so kind, just write your answer in the chat so that everybody can read it. Okay, can we try again with Matteo? No? These are the powerful tools of Regeneratio. Just joking. This is also the... Okay, Matteo, are you back online? Maybe not.
Sabina.
Oh yes, we can hear you.
Sorry for the inconvenience, but my connection. Sorry.
That's all right. Okay, you can.
Okay. Okay. Sorry. In Lazio, yes.
If your connection is poor, yeah. If your connection is too
don't hear me.
Weak. Yeah, I can hear you, but just close your webcam.
Okay.
Close your video so that.
Yeah. Okay.
It will work faster. Okay. Carry on.
Sorry. No. Non si può. Non si può. Provo. So, sorry for the inconvenience. In Lazio, the utilized agricultural area is more than 800,000 hectares with more than 86,000 farms. The total agricultural area represents about 48% of the extension of the region, and the total used area 36%. I can control, yeah, okay. There are increase of farms and areas destined for organic crops. The region allocates 10% of the utilized agricultural area to organic crops, 8% of the national utilized agricultural area. In the 3-year period, 2008-2011, the organic sector recorded an increase of 3.2 in terms of company number, plus 92 companies, and an increase in areas destined for cultivation of 21%. So about the energy scenario, the following peculiarities emerge from the comparison between the Lazio region and the country. We are different current energy mix of Lazio from the national one, several historical population growth trends between Lazio and Italy, GDP growth rates homogeneous in the last 10 years compared to the national but different composition of the production structure, electricity generation sector not in line with the national average. The percentage of renewable energy selected much lower in Lazio than the national average, linked to different availability of source and the presence or absence of some types in plants in the area. We'll see the energy scenario about renewable energy selected in detail. As you see, renewable energy selected is expected to cover 48% of gross final electricity consumption. This projection is essentially due to an increase in photovoltaic generation and to a minority in other renewable sources, as you see in the figure. Photovoltaics, in terms of the share of electricity produced among renewable, went from 43 in 2014 to 71 in 2015. At the same time, in the objective scenario, renewable energies thermics is expected to cover approximately 31% in 2050 of final thermal consumption. The expansion of thermic renewable energies in 2050 is mainly due to the development of heat pumps for the explosion of low enthalpy aerothermal and geothermal renewable sources, solar thermal, and derived heat thanks to the recovery of thermal waste in the processes industrial. So, local policies and action for the pursuit of the main goals of the European strategy. In line with EU and national energy strategy, the Lazio region already with the guidelines for the efficient use of financial resources for development has put in place significant support and incentive policies for support the transition to a low carbon economy in all sectors. Promote adaptation to climate change, risk prevention and management, preserve and protect the environment and promote the efficient use of resources. The regional development policies for the medium to long term is based on a strategic program that aims to promote employment, innovation, education, poverty reduction, and environmental sustainability, and to expand the infrastructural networks of the territory to achieve intelligent, sustainable, and inclusive development in line with the Europe 2020 strategy. The Rural Development Program, or RDP, is the main operational programming and financing tool for intervention in the agricultural, forestry, and rural sector of the regional territory. The RDP allows each EU member state to use the economic resources that the Union itself makes available in agricultural and rural areas. Three strategic objectives were therefore established: improving the competitiveness of agriculture, sustainable management of natural resources and climate action, balanced territorial development for rural areas. For rural development, these three objectives have been translated into 6 priorities to promote knowledge transfer in agriculture and forestry and in rural areas, enhance the competitiveness of agriculture in all its forms and profitability of farms, encourage the organization of the agri-food chain and risk management in the agricultural sector, to preserve, restore, and enhance ecosystems dependent on agriculture and forestry, encourage the efficient use of resources and the transition to a low carbon and climate resilient economy in the agri-food and forestry sectors, and promoting social inclusion, poverty reduction, and economic development in rural areas. For the SWOT analysis, we are still waiting to have more accurate data, but we have a partial view about the actual situation. Renewables energy are constantly growing. Photovoltaics went from 150 to 75th GWh. Wind from 15 went up to over 110 GWh. Energy from 100 to 700. GWH, but total production still comes from fossil sources from 84% due to the presence of mega plants starting from the coal-fired one in Civitavecchia. The production of energy from renewable sources is only 15, and the presence of mega plants starting from the Civitavecchia plants weighs heavily on this figure. Furthermore, the partial failure of the agro-energy measures contained in the rural development program requires a general rethinking. There is a need for an energy revolution in Lazio, with wind and photovoltaics on the roofs, low enthalpy geothermal energy, self-consumption, distributed production, efficiency, green mobility. So Lazio has the possibilities. Now we must exploit them. So that's all. Thank you. Sorry for the inconvenience.
No, don't worry, Matteo. Thank you very much. Actually, you were quite good in picking up exactly where you were interrupted. Thank you for your presentation. So you drafted a picture of Lazio as a region that actually has some potential for the development of renewable energy, also in agriculture. Can you explain what you think are the major strengths and why Lazio is actually a suitable region for this type of development?
Yeah, thank you. For many factors. The first, a natural geographical predisposition. It is known that Lazio has over 50% of the country's environmental heritage, with its 30,000 animal and 3,500 plant related species reported. Regione Lazio features 3 national parks and 96 other protected areas. These areas are classified according to their typology as parks, natural monuments, nature reserves, including 2 marine protected areas, covering on the whole a total protective surface of some 240,000 hectares, which represent over 15% of the entire regional territory. The second, no less important, is the awareness of local politics. By now, certain of having to face the ecological transition and the reduction of environmental impacts by any means possible. The regional territory is the ideal subject for a massive deployment of green community solutions.
Okay. Thank you, Matteo. Thank you, Matteo. Very clear.
Thanks to all the speakers who have so clearly illustrated the various situations existing in 7 European regions. This analysis will be the basis of the next and most important product of AGRORES, the 7 action plans, one for each region involved, for the development of renewable energy in agriculture, aimed at identifying efficient local energy policies. I must say that with this project, with AGRORES, we are right in the way. The European Green New Deal has already foreseen major investment in the energy sector for the decarbonization of Europe. The European Agricultural Policy, CAP, contributes to this transition towards sustainability for 40% of the budget to be climate relevant, sharing the principles of the Farm to Fork strategy for a fair, healthy and sustainable food system. After the pandemic, as you know, it's the Next Generation EU Recovery Fund that relaunches the Green New Deal, because 37% of the fund will be spent on Green Deal objectives. We are talking about 750 billion euros that the European Union put on the table at the end of July to boost the economies of the 27 member states overwhelmed by the crisis. The fight against climate change alone will account for 30% of European funds, the highest percentage ever for the EU budget. So, the contribution of AGRES will also be important in directing the policies of our regions in order to optimize the financial resources available and achieve the best results. And for this, I wish all of us good luck and good work. Before saying goodbye, we would have liked to offer you some typical Italian Roman dish. We can't do this, but we can tell a story about this. And for this, there is the last goodbye video.
And please don't leave straight after the video, because there will be just a quick poll at the end of the video. Okay, thank you. Enjoy the video.
Here we are now, at a catering institute in Rome. Since we can't unfortunately offer you a lunch break, here we have some students, ready to tell us all about one of our most beloved dishes.
La matriciana è il più famoso piatto del Lazio. Infatti descrive la storia gastronomica dell'Appennino centrale e della città di Amatrice, che è una cittadina a nord di Rieti. Era il piatto tipico dei pastori in transumanza, che dovevano mangiare in modo leggero perché viaggiavano. Infatti cuocevano la pasta con farina ed acqua e poi la condivano con il guanciale sciolto in una padella di ferro e tanto pecorino grattugiato.
Ciao, io sono Alessandro De Angelis e lei è Martina Pollidori. Frequentiamo il quarto anno dell'Istituto Professionale Domizio Lucilla, sezione alberghiera. Oggi andremo a preparare un grande classico della cucina romana, la matriciana. Per questo piatto ci serviranno 350 g di rigatoni, 200 g di guanciale, 400 g di salsa pomodoro, pepe, pecorino, olio, sale, peperoncino e vino per sfumare.
Infatti la matriciana è fatta con i prodotti tipici del territorio, come il formaggio di latte di pecora, ovvero il pecorino, e il sottomento del maiale, ovvero il guanciale. Successivamente viene aggiunto anche l'olio di oliva e questo caratterizza le migrazioni in Sabina.
Come prima cosa mettiamo sul fuoco una pentola con abbondante acqua che andremo a salare una volta arrivata a ebollizione. Scalderemo leggermente una padella dove andremo a cuocere il guanciale. Lo sfumiamo con il vino.
Gli amatriciani vennero visti come una popolazione di cuochi, infatti sapevano trattare molto bene la carne di pecora e di maiale e divennero grandi macellai.
Per la nostra ricetta abbiamo scelto di conservarci una parte di guanciale da usare per guarnire il piatto. Aggiungiamo la nostra salsa.
Alla fine dell'Ottocento viene aggiunto il pomodoro e questa è la versione che conosciamo oggi. La pasta da fresca diventa secca, infatti a Roma vengono usati i bucatini, mentre ad Amatrice gli spaghetti.
Thank you all very much. I know, it's not like the real thing, but hopefully it was just enough to make you all feel at home with us for a few moments. I'm sure we'll get another chance to meet in person. From Rome, Lazio, Italy. Have a great day.
Ciao!
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao a tutti.
Okay, we are almost at the end of our productive morning. I hope it was interesting and clear and useful for everyone. Just before, I know that it has been a bit cruel to show you a video about pasta at this time of the day, but there are quite simple ingredients, as you saw, so you can replicate it at home. Just before we finish, there is a quick poll that just came up, so you have a few seconds to answer. And the question is, okay, yeah. After a year of pandemic, we all regret not to meet in person, not just for missing the carbonara. Do you think that the video that we have presented have reduced the discomfort of distance? A, yes, very much. B, yes, little. No. C, no, the same. So if you can just give us a feedback about this format, it would be very useful for the organization of the next meetings. Hoping that we will not need to organize them at distance for a much long time. Okay, so we have just a few more seconds before the final answer. And then I'll pass the word to Dina for the final greeting.
This is...
Aspetta, c'è ancora qualche secondo.
Okay, I can go. So now it's time for this one that is really the closing goodbye. I thank everyone, our leaders, Javier and Anna, who are always very helpful and nice. Javier, are you still with us? I hope so. And our communicator, Tina, always very kind. And all of you, Adam, Astai, Pasi, Stelian, and Mel. And a special thanks to Fondazione Ecosistemi, Matteo, Giorgio, and Sabina, of course. Thanks to the young filmmakers that realized the movies, Eduardo, Livia, and Julia. Thanks to the technician that helped us with this event, Francesca and Daniele. Here is Daniele. Thanks to ARSIAL AgroRes Lazio staff, in particular to Marinella, Paolo, and Amedeo. And now I'm glad to pass the torch to our Roman partner, Stelian. Hoping with all my heart that we'll meet each other in person in Bucharest. Stelian, are you ready?
Devi evitare il microfono.
Oh, sorry. Yes, I am. So thank you, Rome, for handing up the torch. Thank you also for the perfect organization of this event, even in these unfavorable conditions of pandemic, and also for the information and initiative presented. We hope to succeed in living up to expectations and to organize, who knows, maybe in person, in physical format, the fourth interregional event in Bucharest. In any case, we hope to see you healthy again in Bucharest.
Okay.
Okay.
See you.
A big clap to everyone.
Thank
well
you.
done. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Ciao a tutti.
Bucarest.
Bye bye.
Ciao a tutti.
Ciao.